the G43X versus the Glock G26. Let's check it out. As many of you know, Glock just introduced their G43X, which is a 10-round magazine, slimline series, single stack pistol. It has the same slide length as the G43, but with an extended grip. And we've done full reviews on this pistol. But a lot of people have asked for a comparison between it and the Glock G26. Is it a G26 killer? Now, we're going to really be focusing on the differences, but there are some similarities. First thing we need to do is make sure the guns are unloaded. From the factory, they're both 10-round capacity. They do come with the Glock polymer sights, and I'm sure that, there are night sight options available from Glock, and obviously, aftermarket, there's a ton of different sights you can put on these. The slide on the G26 actually extends past the G43X. The barrel length on the G43X is 3.41 inches, while on the G46 it's 3.43 inches. Not a lot of difference, but there's about a 1/4 inch difference in slide length. The G43X has slide serrations on the front, whereas the 26 does not, but the G26 has ambidextrous slide stop, which the G43 does not. The G26 has multiple back straps, whereas the G43X does not. And even though they both have a 10-round capacity, the G26, 10 rounds, but it's double stacked, so it's about an inch shorter. Now, before we get into too much, the G43 is a very popular handgun, even though the G26 was out for a long time. So a lot of people like the G43 as it was. For me, I have carried this gun for a number of occasions, but it's only 6 rounds. You can get extensions, but you're very limited. But one of the things about the G43 is how thin it is. I mean, this is super thin. This is a head down custom job that's done on this particular one. That's the big plus with the G43X, is how thin it is compared to the G26. But the big obvious thing that a lot of people say that are fans of the G26 is this: 15-round magazine, 17-round magazine, 19-round magazine, 33-round magazine, plus 50-round drums, plus any other aftermarket magazine that is double stacked for the Glock pistol. And with the G43X, a 10-round magazine. And at this point, there's no other options. But I can tell you right now, there's a lot of companies working very hard for aftermarket mags, for base plates, extended base plates, and things like that. The weight on the G43X, 1 pound, 2.6 ounces. The weight on the G26, Gen 5, 1 pound, 5.6 ounces, so 3-ounce difference. We're going to take a look at some of the dimensions on the differences between these two, because there's a lot. There's a lot to consider. One of the big things about the G26 over the years is when I first got my G26, it's hanging, my pinky's kind of hanging off. I can kind of rest it a little bit, but I have medium-sized hands. If you have large hands, that could be an issue. Now, there are obviously a lot of extensions. And one that I use a lot is the Pachmayr Plus 2. This gives you just a little more grip. It feels like a full-size gun. It gives you 12 plus 1 instead of the 10 plus 1. And when you put it next to the G43, it's still a little shorter, even though it's curved back here, even here at the front. So I have 12 plus 1, and I have 10. And then again, we can switch out all the other higher capacity magazines. So if I want to, I can slip a 33 rounder in my back pocket. And guys, that has been one of the most deciding factors when carrying the G26 over the G43, because it was 6 rounds, and even if I wanted to have a magazine in my pocket, it could only be 7, 8 rounds if I had an extension. But with the G26, obviously there's a ton of different options that are high capacity. But one of the biggest things that's appealing with the G43X for me, having medium-sized hands, is how great that feels. I mean, it's a full-size grip. It's actually the same grip length as your Model 19. Now, the problem with that is it's going to be a little more difficult to conceal. Obviously, this is the part that you have to conceal the most. Your slide, you know, it goes into the holster, and if you're wearing an appendix, it goes down into your pants, so you don't really see it. But this is the most difficult. Now, I've carried a G19 a lot for concealed carry, and you know, it's a little large, but you know, it's still very concealable. So you know, that is definitely something though to think about, is because of this longer grip compared to the G26, again, even with the extended base plate. But the thickness is definitely a factor for a lot of people, and one of the reasons why the standard G43 has become so popular. The G43X is about 1 inch in width, while the G26 is 1.2 inches, and then with the ambidextrous slide releases, it makes it a little thicker here. When it comes to the grip thickness, it's 1.2 inches on your G43X, it's 1.2 inches, almost 1.25 inches on the G26. The thickness from back strap to front strap is 1.85 inches on the G43X, and it's 2.03 inches on the G26. Now, the difference between the web of your hand to the trigger, on the G26 it's 2.76 inches. On the G43 it's 2.64 inches. So it's a little bit thicker, plus you have the thickness of the grip as well. Now, a lot of people like the thicker grip. You feel like you've got more of a grip on it, and if you put the extension on, it gives you even more of a grip. But if you're not carrying the extension, honestly, it's a little more psychological than practical, but it definitely makes you feel like you don't quite have a solid grip on the pistol. With the G43X, you've got a solid grip on this handgun. If you have really large hands, you know, maybe not, but this is definitely a great feeling handgun. And one of the things too, for me, when I'm concealed carrying, thinness is a factor. The really slim profile of the G43X does help when you're carrying all day, and I carry all day every day. Now, one thing that I thought was interesting is on the G43X, it has very light texturing. I mean, it's very grippable. You feel like you've got a good solid grip, but it's not near as aggressive as the G26. You can see right here, there is a lot of difference between the two. And it's funny because Smith & Wesson with their M&P line now has become even more aggressive, and yet Glock introduces the G43X and it's much less aggressive. But it does have those pyramids, which gives you a good solid grip without it being uncomfortable. Not that the Gen 5 texturing is uncomfortable. I really like it. Now, I've got the Gen 3 Model 26 with the finger grooves, and you know, I've been carrying that for years. And it also has a little more extension here on the back. So you're going to get even more of a larger grip with the Gen 3. Well, thank Fiocchi for sponsoring the ammo, 115 grain full metal jacket, and all made right here in the USA. Also, can't do without Maglula Loaders. Of course, we can look at all the specifications, and it's really academic until you get it out to the range. One of the things about these two pistols is we've done full reviews on both. Both are accurate, both are very reliable. But how they shoot is totally different. It's really funny, but when you first look at the G26, and when I first purchased my G26, you know, I thought this is going to be a little hard to handle because your pinky kind of hangs off the end. But with the dual recoil springs in the G26, to me, this gun shoots very similar to my Glock 19. So it has almost a full-size feel to it when you're shooting. Now for me, typically I'll add one of the extended base plates to give me an extra round or 2 extra rounds, and then it just fills my hand completely. So really it's no different. The sight radius is a little smaller or a little shorter, but you know, this is for a self-defense handgun at really self-defense ranges. When you bring out the G26, it feels like you've got a little more control over the handgun. A lot of that has to do just with the extended grip and being able to get a full grip. Then it's very balanced, very pointable. Honestly, if you pick up the two, the G43X feels more natural in the hand. But when shooting it, the G26 actually shoots flatter. I thought maybe with the thicker slide, with more weight, it was going to get a little more snappy. But to be honest with you, and really after examining the shooting video, the G43X definitely had a little more muzzle flip. Was it excessive? No. It's still very controllable. It's a great gun to shoot. And really, unless you shoot them side by side, you don't really realize it.
Now let's take a look at the interior. We're going to drop the magazines, check the chamber. We'll go ahead and disassemble this one, the 26. One thing about it with this double recoil spring, this really makes a difference when shooting this handgun as far as the recoil, felt recoil. With the G43X. But it also has a dual recoil spring. And we have our barrel. While they're very similar in design, the G26 is a little thicker than the G43X, but they still both have the polymer core. And here, when it comes to the barrel, the G26 barrel's a little bit thicker and just a touch longer, but not by much. Here we have the G43X, has a little bit of a wider feed ramp than the G26. And you can see the interior of the slides, the design is the same. And in the frame, pretty much, except for the thickness of the G26 and the ambidextrous slide stop. Looks like the locking bar, of course, is a little thinner because the frame is a little thinner. But pretty much, same design. The G26 magazine is obviously thicker, shorter, still 10 rounds, but it is double stacked. And reassembly is the same for both pistols. Drop in our barrel, recoil spring and guide rod. Pop it over the slide, over the frame. And the same for the G26. Now I'm going to give you my thoughts on these two handguns. Number one, this is going to continue to be my standard concealed carry option. I love the Gen 5 too. I carried the Gen 3 for a long time, and I've got the Model 27 as well. I really love the way they shoot, and they're not going anywhere. And neither is the Gen 5 G26. I like the thinner grip. It's just still fits very well in my hand. And with the dual recoil springs that are in here, it shoots more, again, like my Model 19, to be honest with you. Once I put the extended base plate in here, it just gives me a full grip. And I really like that. I feel comfortable. With the extended magazines, to have one in your back pocket, that's great. But with all the self-defense shootings that have gone on, studies have been done, and reloads are very unusual in a self-defense situation. Now for me, looking at maybe even like civil unrest or some kind of riot or multiple people attacking, I'm definitely going to continue to carry an extended magazine. But for standard self-defense, honestly, the magazine you have in the gun is the one that really is going to carry you through. Which brings us to the G43X. I mean, you do have a 10-round magazine, and there will be extensions, but it is going to be longer, which obviously is going to be a little bit more difficult to conceal, yet it's so thin, it's going to ride closer to the body. And so that's definitely a good point. For me, yes, I would carry the G43X, especially if I was already one that loved the G43. There's, again, a lot of guys that carry the G43. And one of the reasons, though, that I don't carry this as much is because of the limited magazine capacity. We're going to be doing a full head-to-head between the G43 and the G43X, looking at a lot of magazine options and just kind of doing some comparisons. And that's coming up soon. But this is not discounted just because it doesn't take your higher capacity magazines. A lot of times, if I really want to be more discreet and I want to keep that handgun really close to my body, this Slimline series is not only more comfortable, but it's easier for me to feel confident that it's close to my body. And, I feel like I can conceal it easier. With the G26, sometimes, just because it's a little thicker, it could give me a little more print than, the slimline. So that's just a consideration. But here's the thing, guys. If you're comfortable with this size, it does have a lot of advantages. And especially like here with the Pachmayr +2 base plate. I have 12 rounds. I still only have 10 rounds, and yet I still am a little bit longer, but I'm a lot thinner. And this really kind of takes away from, the grip sticking out, because now you have the longer grip. But really, overall, guys, it's just a matter of what is your preference. What do you like? And a lot of guys are going to pick up the G26. They're going to say, oh, it's thick. That pinky extension, my pinky's sticking out with the standard. And they're going to purchase the G43X. And they're going to be happy with it. And you know what? It's going to save lives in certain situations. But if you really want the advantages of the G26 and to be able to have that extra 17 or 33 round magazine in your back pocket, that's definitely a peace of mind. But honestly, guys, let's face it. Most gunfights happen within 3 feet, 3 seconds, and 3 rounds. So the best thing to do is to go what you're comfortable with. But definitely carry the pistol. A 22 in your pocket's much better than a 45 left at home. So guys, we all have personal preferences. We all have opinions about what's best. And you need to have those for yourself. But also to be open-minded that there could be other purposes for these two handguns. There's definitely, again, some advantages to each one. There's also some disadvantages. Really, the big thing is for you to decide which one's best. For me, I like carrying the G26 as my concealed carry in an everyday basis. The G43X, carrying it because it's so thin makes it really easier to carry for me as appendix carry, but also it has those extra 4 rounds that the standard G43 does not have. So it gives me a little more confidence to carry something thin and yet with a little bit higher round capacity. And one thing I highly recommend is going to a gun shop, putting both of these in your hand and being able to get that grip, feeling the grip. If you can go to a range that rents guns, it'd be great to be able to shoot both of them, but just gripping the guns will tell you a lot about which one. And then, of course, all the other details that we talked about, with the extra magazines, with the extended base plates, it does change the way this gun feels and shoots. And then, of course, there's a lot of aftermarket support that's probably coming for the G43X. And so, guys, for me, I just choose to have both. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. Now, even though the slides are, no, they're not, but there are a lot of companies fervishly. And if you're a Glock hater and you're down in the comments talking about how Glock never does anything new, this one's for you, baby. No, hush.